Good morning if you are in Europe, and good afternoon and evening if you are with us in Asia. It's so lovely to see that most of you have. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for joining on time. We see that some of you are still slowly joining. So today we are going to go through a journey of learning about feedback, giving and receiving from both ways. And then we have three fantastic mentors who are your peers as well. We'll be talking about empowering mentorship. And today is the last knowledge building session of your training. So with that, let's begin. So first of all, today's session is, of course, hosted by the ASEFClassNet team, together with two of our alumni and one alumni from the Open Education for Better World. And as usual, please mute yourself and participate as actively throughout the session. Please use the chat box. We have a number of questions for you for that to engage by using the chat box. And then raise your hand if you have a question or comment. Also, you can just use the chat box to type your questions and comments. And please be precise so that we can use the time very effectively. And after our sessions on today's topic in two parts, we will stop for a question and answer session. And then we will basically go through a little bit of recap and relevance of the knowledge building sessions that you had so that you know how to use this knowledge with your mentees. And then, of course, we will tell you about what's next. Then we will close the session. So it's my pleasure, and I'm so excited to introduce Adam, Subha, and Juliette. All of you already know them. Some of you have directly worked with them. So they will be our expert mentors who will be sharing their advice and experience based on the experience that they had on mentorship and mentoring other teachers and educators. And as usual, you know me, I'm part of the ASEFClassNet team, and I have worked with some of you before. I have given feedback to some of you before. So today I'm also very excited to share that giving and receiving feedback journey and share some insights that I have learned from other resources as well as from you. So with that, the first part is the art of giving and receiving feedback. For this, can I ask you, when you hear the word feedback, what comes to your mind? If you can use the chat box to type your answers. Growth from Juliette. Thanks, Jules. So we'll wait for options. Very good. Knowing what are the options after a feedback session. Potentials, amazing, Yuting. And then advice on, wow, you were fantastic. The responses are coming in really fast. Advice on how to improve, absolutely. Recommendations, making it formative, communication, that's a very excellent point. Opportunity to improve, critical thinking, learning, amazing. So it's really great to know that you are the right pool for our mentorship program because you are really aware about what feedback means. So with that, let me read this to you because I think most of us will find it very relevant and can identify ourselves with these words. Before you tell me how to do it better, before you lay out your big plans for changing, fixing, and improving me, and I did not add the whole paragraph because it's long, know this, I have heard it before. I have been graded, rated, and ranked, coached, screened, and scored. I have been picked first, picked last, and sometimes not picked at all. And that was just kindergarten. So this is excerpt from a book called Thanks for the Feedback, The Science and Art of Receiving Feedback Well by Douglas Stone and Sheila Hinn. Amazing book. I highly recommend it. If you have time, please check this out. So now that we kind of established feedback is something that we have been receiving throughout, from a very early age to when we are grown up and we are, actively working beyond our profession. We receive feedback at home at personal level as well. We receive feedback from friends. We receive feedback from, from all sorts of sources throughout our lifetime. So in a way, we live in an ocean of feedback. So now that we have kind of learned about feedback and actually, how it affects us and from when, what do you think about the history of feedback? Do any of you have any idea about how this word came to use today? We use it widely in many settings, but how did it really come to use in both professional and personal setting? Let's see if you have any. So if you can just type your responses in the chat box. Let's see if you have any idea about the historical relevance of from the industry. That's correct. Team management. Thanks, Alanka. Feedback loops. Yes. Yes. For innovation. Okay. So I was actually surprised when I learned this for the first time. So actually, so the term feedback was actually originated back in 1860s, not so long ago, but again, depending on how you look at it, a long time ago. And it used to be the term feed-back. And it was used in a scientific setting where, during the Industrial Revolution, scientists wanted to describe how outputs of, for example, energy, signal, etc., are returned to the point of origin in a mechanical system. And by 1909, Nobel Prize laureate Carl Brown, so he used the term feed-back to describe coupling and loops of an electronic circuit. So those of you who are teaching STEM and familiar with electronic circuit, I think you understand this process better. And then a decade later, the new compounded word, now there is no more hyphen, it became a whole word, feedback. It was being used to describe the, recirculating sound loop in an amplification system. So in the sound system that kind of increase amplify the sound, right? And then finally, sometimes after Second World War, the term was being used in industrial relations to manage people and performance. So then finally it came to use widely, and today all of us, we know what feedback really means. So with that, if we focus on the concept of it, it actually includes information about you and how you get information about you. So basically how we learn about ourselves from experience of ourselves as well as from the experience of the other about life. Examples can be in a formal setting, annual performance review. And examples can also include when your student, they see you and their face lights up because you are their favorite teacher. That can be a feedback as well. And feedback is not just about what gets ranked, it's also about what gets thanked, appreciated, and commented on. It can be, of course, from these examples, you can tell formal, it can be not informal, direct, implicit, sometimes even vague, that you are not even sure what that feedback was, right? Does it matter? Does feedback matter? From your understanding with the first icebreaking question about what comes to your mind, you have mentioned some of these words: growth, progress, innovation, creativity. For all of these things, feedback is actually really crucial. Without feedback, sometimes we can't really achieve these things, right? So what are some of the types of feedback? Feedback can be anonymous or it can be attributed, meaning sometimes you don't know where this feedback is coming from because it's anonymous. Sometimes it can be identified. So the person or the source who is communicating the feedback to you is known to you, or you know who that person or organization is. And then finally, second, feedback can be positive or negative. Sometimes in our life, throughout our life, we receive either positive or negative feedback depending on the circumstances. Feedback can be constructive that help you improve. Feedback can be destructive that can demotivate you. It can happen in a formal setting, for example, in your school. It can happen in an informal setting, for example, in a party that you go to. It can be a 360-degree approach that considers all kinds of aspects. It can be a single source, for example, only looking at one point of view or one single source. It can be verbal. Sometimes you hear feedback directly from someone, or it can be nonverbal. Sometimes you don't hear anything, but through body languages, you can tell if somebody is angry with you or happy with you. So that's nonverbal, right? It can be written and documented. So most often it happens in a formal setting. It can be self-feedback, so that you are self-reflecting and giving yourself feedback to improve on your own. It can be feedback from your peer. And some of you are familiar with it who joined the ASEFClassNet 16 conference and our project as well. You have this peer-to-peer feedback framework within the program. Feedback can be from your superior, for example, your principals, headmasters. Feedback can also be external, internal. Sometimes within the organization, we receive external feedback. We receive internal feedback from the team. So there are all sorts of feedback that exist. And what are the fundamentals of effective feedback? Of course, effective feedback has to be relevant. It has to be goal-oriented. It has to be specific. Most importantly, it has to be timely. And of course, it has to be constructive and respectful. And there should be a balance. For example, some of you might have heard of it, or all of you might have heard of it, called the sandwich method. So you start with positivity and a bit of praise, and then you give the feedback. If it's negative, then you end with the positive note. So that's in a way called balancing out, right? Sometimes people can be emotional, sometimes it can be difficult to receive feedback. So you balance it out the way you give it. And you need to ensure that when you give feedback, it's a two-way communication. So you are giving as a giver, and then there has to be room for the receiver to also communicate their side in a feedback setting. And of course, it has to be consistent so that the improvement and innovation, whatever you are focusing on for your feedback, can be tracked better. And finally, there should be follow-up. What's next, right? What can we do more? How do we use this feedback to improve? So follow-up is absolutely crucial. And as you will be supporting ASEFClassNet 17 school collaboration mentors, how does the process work? How can you give effective feedback? So for you, we advise that as you work with your mentees, you observe, you actively listen. Juliette will talk a bit more about it later. You analyze the situation and you try to understand first before giving feedback. And always be prepared beforehand, because when you prepare your feedback and points that you want to communicate, when you prepare it beforehand, sometimes it takes the stress away from it, and also you are more focused and it's goal-oriented and specific. And of course, plan it thoughtfully, and always communicate the feedback in a two-way process so that the receiver can also establish their point of view and communicate to you to clarify any misunderstandings or any incomplete information that exists. And of course, both the receiver and giver need to agree and commit to what they want to achieve together. And then it has to be a continuous reflection process, because we are lifelong learners and we learn every day. Learning is something that never stops, right? And finally, of course, awareness between giving feedback and receiving feedback is very important. The book that I highlighted in the beginning of describing feedback, the art, thank you for the feedback, the art of giving feedback well. So in that book, they talk about these dynamics about receiving and giving feedback, where often you think that as a feedback giver, you are in a powerful position, or you are in a position where it's easy for you to give feedback, or you have a more authority in a way, right? But actually, the feedback receiver has more autonomy and authority, because depending on how you give feedback, they can either decide to take your feedback and work on it to improve and achieve the goal, or if you didn't give feedback well and in a conducive way, they can just ignore it. So feedback receiver actually has a lot of power. So you need to ensure that you are giving feedback in a thoughtful, constructive, and respectful manner. So this is very interesting. When we talk about feedback, the authors, Douglas and Sheen, they talk about 3 kinds of triggers. So the first one is truth. And I think some of you, when you hear this, you will find it familiar. Sometimes depending on how the feedback is communicated, whether it's true or not, often the reaction is that's wrong, or that's not true, that's not me, or that's not helpful, right? So that's something called truth trigger. So when you give feedback, you need to ensure that you are whatever you are communicating, it's based on truth and facts. Relationship. It can be sometime, in, let's say, for example, in a friendship, when you are trying to give feedback because you support your friend and you want them to, follow a good path or improve if you were feeling like they are not doing so. Sometimes you get the reaction, who are you to tell me this, right? You are the problem, not me. So that's called the relationship trigger based on the relationship dynamics that you have. And the third one is called identity. So sometimes often, we all are individuals. We have different life experiences, different level of confidence. So often we will say things like, I'm not good enough. I always make mistakes, and sometimes others say, I'm never wrong, and I'm always on time. And they try to kind of always defend themselves and make the other person who is giving feedback feel in a way that they have not done anything wrong, right? So that has to do with identity. So how do we overcome this? What are some of the ways to overcome these triggers in a feedback giving and receiving setting? First, whenever you are getting a reaction that's wrong, you can gently ask, tell me more, so that you take the understanding and analyzing approach to kind of make the feedback receiver feel comfortable to explain more. And then, of course, we all have our own ways. We come from certain type of views. We hold certain type of views. For that, you always need to focus on blind spots, your own blind spot, and reflect on, in your mind, maybe you are giving your feedback the right way, but if you get a response that you did not encounter, you need to reflect on, how did I come across? Is it possible that I might not have given it well? So it's always good to focus on that. And then relationship. Relationship is a little bit more complicated. There are lots of dynamics, different types of background, and especially for a setting like you who come from different cultural background and different countries, different regions, how you interact with each other is very different. It varies depending on your language proficiency, even, for example. So in a situation where you have relationship trigger, take a step back, understand the relationship dynamic, reflect, and separate the feedback giver and receiver. So we from what? Focus on what you need to do and communicate that clearly. And finally, identity, that's another complex element, another trigger. In this one, as a mentor, you have a really important and pivotal role. You have to dismantle distortion and thinking like, I'm not good enough, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to support your mentee feel confident. You want to make them feel that they're learning and growing. So you have to support when your mentee feel that way. And you must encourage a growth mindset. And for that, later, Subha will talk more based on her experience. And finally, feedback is also about coaching and learning to improve together. So that's the part on the art of giving and receiving feedback, and we can learn more about it during the question and answer session. But now let me hand over to our mentors. Let me first invite Adam. So Adam has been with us for now many years, over a decade. He has been a participant before, then he joined us as a school collaboration coordinator / mentor. He won awards when he contributed and worked with us for the school for a school collaboration on STEM. Now, finally, he's an expert mentor of this ASEFClassNet community. And based on his experience, Adam will talk about the importance of relationship building, setting expectation, and motivation and enthusiasm. Adam, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Hello, everybody. Being the first presenter, it may turn out that I'll steal some ideas from my colleagues. I'm sorry if this happens, but I'm sure that the more times some hints will be repeated, the better mentors we will be over the coming months. So I divided my clues into 3 groups. The first one refers to building relationships. The following ones are setting expectations, inclusion, and community building. First of all, it's crucial to establish trust. In my opinion, it is the cornerstone of mentorship. We need to cultivate an environment of honesty, friendliness, reliability, and we need to build trust with mentees. It's also important to take time to connect with mentees on a personal level, showing genuine interest in their backgrounds and experiences. And building rapport creates a comfortable space for open communication. As mentors, we should encourage open and effective communication and create a safe environment where mentees feel comfortable expressing their thoughts or even concerns. Our role to offer guidance on clarity in expression and setting communication rules. I mean here, for example, response time to emails or messages or availability for meetings. This will ensure consistency and reliability. Being mentors, we need to pay attention to the involvement of all participants. That's crucial in active work and discussions and encourage diverse perspective and contributions. We come from different backgrounds, as Jyoti has already said, so it will be an important issue. I believe that we can foster a sense of belonging by creating a friendly and inclusive environment where all mentees feel valued and respected. Conducting various projects in the past and being a mentor as well, I have noted that incorporating elements of fun and enjoyment into the mentoring process greatly fosters community building. Having fun together always breaks ice and everyone feels good and is ready to work effectively. These are my thoughts. As for setting expectations, there are several issues I'd like to mention. The first one is to clarify goals. Objectives and outcomes need to be clear and approved by everyone. As mentors, we must collaborate with mentees to establish specific measurable goals aligned with their aspirations. Also, it's vital to define roles and responsibilities and set expectations for each party's contributions and commitments. It's always good to discuss, for instance, time commitments and establish a schedule for meetings and check-ins that accommodates everyone's schedules. I think that's all from my side. Jyoti has also asked us to prepare our own personal clue. And my idea is that a good mentor is always enthusiastic, motivated, because enthusiasm is infectious. That's what I noticed while working with my students on projects, but also working with teachers as a teacher trainer. So as mentors, we need to be enthusiastic and motivated. Okay, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Adam. And with that, power to all of you for being already very motivated to, first of all, join the mentorship program, and hopefully will keep that motivation up with your mentees, and also you will bring a lot of enthusiasm to the program. And as Adam said, enthusiasm and motivation, they are infectious. Hopefully it will increase the level of engagement of your mentees as they participate in this 3-month-long virtual journey. So with that, let me invite Subha So Subha is an Open Education for Better World alumni mentor, and she has a very interesting and dynamic career profile as well. She makes films. She will talk about cultural awareness and growth mindset, why these things are important. And finally, she will close with punctuality and respecting the timeline. Adam touched that topic a little bit, but Subha will emphasize on this a bit more. Subha, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jyoti, and very good afternoon from India to everybody present here. Thank you, Jyoti, for giving me this platform to share some of my thoughts. Now, in a global situation like we are in, cultural differences or cultural similarities play a very important role. That's what I have seen time and time again. And we must overcome the cultural barrier. So how do we do that? So while I was preparing my talk a little bit, I asked myself that when mentees will be assigned to me, the mentees can be from any country. Mentee can be from Finland, or mentee can be from Vietnam, any country. And I know so little about those countries. Okay, so what do I do? So I would recommend that to all the mentors here, that once you are assigned your mentee, you do a little homework about the country. So I asked ChatGPT about the education system in Finland and the education system in Vietnam. And in no time, ChatGPT gave me the answers, some of which I am just reading out. I need not share screen. I just read out just about Finland. ChatGPT said equality and inclusivity, around that, early childhood education, comprehensive schooling, then lack of standardized testing and highly qualified teachers, and holistic curriculum. And of course, focus on equality of access, even in higher education. Then about Vietnam, it says the education in Vietnam has undergone significant development and transformation over the years, reflecting the country's commitment to improving literacy rates and fostering human capital, economic growth, etc., structure and levels, and all these descriptions it has given. So ChatGPT instantly gave me some answers, but of course we can do further research, probe further into the education scenarios of those countries the countries from which our mentors are coming, and understand that. If the mentee is from a country that is very familiar to us, fine. But there is no guarantee that we are very familiar with the country from where the mentee is coming. So we have to do our basic research on that. And then when there is our first meeting with our mentee, we have to spend time trying to understand that person. So if we already know a little bit about that country from where she comes, then he or she, whatever, then the person will also feel confident that, okay, so she's not a completely unknown thing. My mentor has interest in my country. My mentor knows so many things about my country. So mentee will also feel a little bit confident, will warm up towards the mentor. And then, of course, the mentor can ask questions about the teaching learning environment in her own setup, in her own school or college. How many students are there? How she goes about evaluating the students? What kind of activities? What kind of exercises? So the first session, it may be an hour-long session, can be in this sort of a discussion, so that both mentor and mentee get to know each other better. All right. So through that process, this personal differences as well as cultural differences can be overcome. So I highly recommend that all mentors do a little bit of homework before you meet your mentee for the first time. So that is one way of overcoming the cultural difference. And of course, you have to keep updating. As a mentor also, you have to do homework. You have to keep updating yourself. So once you get to know your mentee a little bit better, so you will very soon figure out the strengths and weaknesses of your mentee. All right, that what the person is good at. Maybe the person is very visually imaginative and can make very good PowerPoint presentations. The person may have some difficulty when it comes to verbal expression. Some stumbling blocks are there. Maybe she knows, but she cannot express herself properly. All right. So if you meet enough times, say in 2 or 3 meetings, an experienced mentor will be able to figure out the strengths and weaknesses of the mentee. And then the mentor has to suggest ways of overcoming those difficulties. All right. So if it comes to verbal expression, of course, there are some in YouTube, there are so many YouTube videos, or the mentor herself can take a small session talking about, verbal expression or expressing oneself in writing, whatever. Okay. Or recommend some ready-made courses and make sure that the mentee takes those courses, so that those blind spots or the weak spots in the mentee are strengthened at least to some extent. So the mentor has to constantly monitor, and through that process of monitoring, the mentor will know that what are the areas of strength and weakness. And Jyoti was talking about feedback. So positive feedbacks actually works wonders. So any little good thing the mentee has done, the mentor should always shower praise that this is a very good step that you have taken forward, and you are very good at such and such thing. So you keep up with the good work. A little bit of word of praise can really go a long way in encouraging any person. So therefore, do not be stingent with your words of praise. But where criticism is required, there of course you have to criticize a little bit. But again, positive criticism with suggestions of improvement. Okay, and also suggesting available courses, or maybe you yourself can take a crash course or whatever. So therefore, the growth mindset has always to be there. Like somebody like me, this thing is, I am still quite weak about what all AI can do. So therefore, I will go all out and try to improve my knowledge and improve my skill sets, etc. So that way, you have to help your mentee also to fill the gaps wherever you feel that there is gaps. So these two things are very essential. Then, of course, this respecting the timeline, because we all are in time-bound program. This particular program that we are in, that is absolutely time-bound. So there is a definitive starting point and a non-negotiable ending point. It cannot stretch on and on forever. So once you know the starting point and ending points and how many months are there with you, so then mentor and mentee sit together and you chalk out the program accordingly, so that you can do justice to the program in the given amount of time. Now, from my experience, I have seen that some developers, those who are out, into developing courses, they want to achieve a lot in a short period of time. They want to achieve a lot. They become over ambitious. All right. Now you cannot pour cold water on them. No, this is too much. Don't do too. But diplomatically, you have to say, okay, let us set our priorities, and let us first do these things properly, and then, if time permits, maybe we will venture into these other areas also. Okay, if you feel that the mentee is becoming over ambitious and trying to achieve too much. Okay, and then you set up a week by week timeline that, okay, in the first week, realistically, what all we can achieve. And when we set the timeline, you just factor in, setbacks. There may be illnesses, there may be other kinds of setbacks, there may be work overload from, because all the mentees are working somewhere or the other. So there may be pressure of work from the other sector. So therefore, there has to be, there's some gap. It cannot be a very watertight kind of timeline. So let it be comfortable, that comfortably, in spite of all other engagement, do you think in the first week, this much you can achieve? These papers you can read, or this little write-up you can prepare like that. So that way, both of you together sit and make a timeline. And once that timeline is made, that cannot be done maybe in an hour, that can take a little longer also. But once the timeline is made, that has to be respected both by the mentor and the mentee. Sometimes the mentee is very punctual, but the mentor begins to take things easy. All right. So in this case, both have to be equally alert, and at a assigned time on a particular day, both, like, we are meeting every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Singapore time. So like that, set up a time and you have to religiously meet up. All right. And no laziness, no excuses, nothing. And then discuss the problems, and that way take it forward. So unless you respect the timeline, and throughout the course of the program, then in the last moment, there will be too much to be done, and everything will have to be done hurriedly. So in order to avoid that, prepare a realistic timeline. Do not be over ambitious. Do not try to overachieve. Prepare a realistic timeline. And both mentor and mentee should have that will to respect the timeline and to stick to it, and to see that progress is made at an even rate, at a proper rate, so that there is no hurrying up at the last moment. There is no last minute rush. So these are some of the things that we have to keep in mind as mentors. So this is what I wanted to share. So maybe later on during Q&A, we can take up some of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Subha. Thank you for stressing on the timeline. I would frame it a bit differently. I would say be ambitious, but realistically.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing such inspiring as well as very realistic guidelines. Hopefully, everyone will find it very useful. With that, let's invite our final mentor who is sharing their experience, Juliette. So she will talk about 3 key important things, and the first 2 are a bit relevant because it's about listening, but she will highlight how they are different and why they are important in mentorship. And then finally, why it's important to celebrate success and milestones throughout this mentorship journey. So Jules have her slides prepared. I'm going to stop sharing mine so that you can share yours, Jules.
Thank you, my lovely. So I just want to say thank you very much to our wonderful speakers who came before me, Subha and Adam, because everything that I'm sharing is building upon what they've actually said. Can you just tell me, please, if you can see the slide deck, Jyoti?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. Thank you. So active and empathic listening. We do this all the time because it's part and parcel of our tool set. However, chances are we've domesticated it. We're not actually conscious of it. And when we're working in a role as a mentor, which is different to a teacher's role, it's slightly different. So we're going to look at the importance of active and empathic listening, which are closely related, and to some extent, they converge in places. Active listening is a strategy where we completely concentrate on what's being said and observe non-verbal cues like body language. It's largely objective. We listen with all our senses without being judgmental and show interest in the conversation by maintaining eye contact, nodding, saying words like, yes, okay, I know, I understand. And more importantly, it can be learned and it can be practiced. Active listening enhances the effectiveness of empathy, and it's action-based. And there are benefits of active and empathic listening apart from making the person we're speaking to feel good about themselves.
Jules, sorry for interrupting. Are you moving the slides? Because I only see from...
No, not yet. It's okay.
Okay.
No, not yet. We will get there, but this is just intro. But basically, if we can improve communication and clarity, we enhance learning and growth, and most importantly, strengthen trust and rapport. By listening carefully, we can understand our group's individual and collective aspirations, avoid misunderstandings, clarify expectations, and provide constructive feedback. The combination of active and empathic listening can help us identify our participants' strengths, as Subha said earlier, their challenges, and support them in developing their skills and confidence so that we can celebrate their achievements, empowering our mentorship and our group's work. So active listening is a practice. It's a process where we need to read and use both verbal and non-verbal cues to demonstrate our interest. And even though we're working on a computer, leaning forward, addressing people, nodding, actually acknowledging the words that are being spoken and the ideas that are being shared are really important. Asking open-ended questions like, what are the challenges you're facing now? Help us to invite our participants to share more information, their feelings or their opinions. And by asking clarifying questions, we confirm our understanding, our shared understanding, because sometimes we come in with our own beliefs about what people are going to be talking about. But by actually asking those clarifying questions, we can articulate responses and respond to them more effectively. Paraphrasing and summarizing are also useful techniques to check our shared understanding. Affirmations and encouragement such as, I'm really impressed on how you managed to navigate that issue that you had in such a substantive, collaborative way. That's really impressive. And acknowledging what they do demonstrates that we actually appreciate our participants' efforts, their achievements and their feelings, which hopefully will motivate them to continue with what they're doing. Listening empathically is more about feeling. It's about our response and entails making an emotional connection with the other person, finding similarities between their experience and our own so we can give more heartfelt responses. Validating others' viewpoints and expressing our compassion is an important way of communicating for building and maintaining those strong collaborative relationships. But it also shows that we are appreciating cultural difference as well, that we are considerate of the other person's input and their feelings and their concerns. And perhaps the most important quality of empathic listening is actually giving support and encouragement rather than advice and criticism. But it's not always easy, especially when we may have different backgrounds, experiences, or expectations, and it can be really hard when we want to offer ideas and solutions. And as people who've been practitioners, coordinators of projects and participants in them, it's such a hard thing not to want to provide our little gem of information. The reality is, of course, we are not the participants. We are their coaches, their guides, their mentors. And there will be times where we might feel impatient and possibly frustrated or misunderstand what our teams are trying to achieve or even their intentions. And it may be that we need to help them manage their feelings when facing conflict or disagreement. And our model of active and empathic listening may indeed help them in their communication. So to overcome the challenges, we just need to try and be curious, to be open-minded, respectful. We need to listen objectively, acknowledge and respect differences, and focus on finding places where their vision for the collaboration can find common ground or solutions, and where we celebrate each fruitful step. Because if we don't celebrate each step forward, particularly when they've overcome difficulties, they're going to lose their enthusiasm. And it's really important that we do share each fruitful step. But perhaps our greatest challenge will be to stay in the moment and to still our own mind chatter. And I'm sure that Jyoti gave me this one because she knows how quick I am to throw ideas in. And it's a good lesson for me as well. So to improve our active listening skills, we need to practice and reflect on them regularly. Setting aside enough time and space for an authentic exchange, we need to focus on our participants. And most importantly, listen with both an open heart and an open mind. Remember that the point of these discussions is to let the speaker air their feelings and their thoughts at their own pace. If there are breaks in the communication, it's so tempting to bounce in and fill that space. However, we need to allow them space and to remain quiet so that they can formulate their thoughts, challenge that silence. And maybe they will actually invite us in. And at that point, we've been invited in to share. But even then, we've got to be careful of that, because obviously it is incredibly tempting to bound in with more enthusiasm than perhaps we ought to have. We are lifelong learners. We're absolutely crucial models to our teachers that are going to be working with us. And as members of a group working, or a pair working on a project, they also need to learn to allow space and to hold space for one another while they come to an understanding of what their common goals are, that they understand that they will each come with different visions, but have to find a commonality in that vision to be able to share and move the project forward. And empathic listening demonstrates our care, our respect, and our value for our participants' perspectives, because it's up to us to create that safe and supportive environment that fuels their collaboration in a substantive way, that allows us to celebrate totally not only the fact that they've reached the end, that their students have learned so much, but that they've actually overcome difficulties and they've understood productive failure, because productive failure is where you learn from your mistakes, you reiterate, and you might reiterate 10 times, but the outcome is so much better. So that's me. Let me stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Juliette, for really establishing the fact that there is a difference between active and empathetic listening and why they're important in the feedback process, as well as why it's so important that we celebrate every milestone. So with that, a big thank you to all 3 expert mentors for sharing such useful insights. And they will be part of the cohort. Of course, anytime you need any more advice and support, please reach out to each other in general anyways. And now let's stop for 10 minutes. Sorry, we have 10 minutes for question and answers. It's both on this on part 1 on the feedback as well as on the empowering mentorship. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can see each other and have a conversation. So who wants to go first? You can raise your hand or you can unmute yourself and then speak.
Can I just actually say that despite the fact that we didn't really have a knowledge of what the other speakers were going to be talking about, each of those presentations dovetailed quite beautifully to cover such important elements. And I just want to thank you for that opportunity to see the fluidity and the ease with which people who come together share ideas. And if we're meant to be doing it, we're doing it because we are on the same road and we have the same sort of thought processes. So it's wonderful to see that collaboration happening, even though we didn't do it deliberately. So thank you, Jyoti, for making that possible.
Thank you, Jules. Really appreciate it. I see that Omar raised his hand. Please go ahead.
Yeah, first of all, well done for the speakers, very insightful. Thank you. It was very helpful. And besides of those useful tips, with regards maybe to you as organizers, maybe from you, and the question is more from you, towards you. What is exactly expected from us? I mean, with regards to logistics, how is it going to work?
Thank you, Omar. So
to say when they are going to submit, sorry for interrupting again. When they're going to submit the dates, the most important dates,
yes,
about the work and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Umar. So if you remember during the introduction and welcome session, we have actually shared about the whole timeline for these 3 months. And also, we explained the roles and responsibilities you have as mentors. Just to go back, I want to go back to that conversation we had during the session and just summarize it. So the key role for you, of course, as mentor to support your mentees when they are designing the innovative teaching practice and work together in a team. So for that, right now, after the training phase, you are welcome to join the self-learning session. So we have already shared this schedule with you as well. And after that, between 5 and 12th of June, when they go through the team building and team formulation process, you will receive an email from us that tells you who are your teams, who are your mentees. And then at the 3rd session of team building, for everyone, we have designed it on intercultural communication and working in an intercultural environment, because that's really crucial for our type of project where you are coming from more than 35 countries. And then from that session onward, last 3 team learning sessions will be led by you as mentors. So you will work together with your mentees to actually lead the session, design the session, and also independently organize whenever you want to meet. What is the timeline that works for everybody? And so in that way. And of course, as the ClassNet team will be there, and anytime you have any challenges with your team or mentees or any type of questions that you have, you can always write back to us. Yeah. Any other questions?
I actually have one. When it comes to the preparation for or process of their actual projects, do we participate and a guide on the side throughout that process?
So of course, Yes, thank you, Jules. It's a very
Thank you.
important and relevant question as well. So at the end of the day, it's their innovative teaching practice. So the ownership is theirs, and the idea, the design, they need to go through that process. You as a mentor, you are going to support them in terms of, for example, I will share a bit later. I have 3 recap slides for the 3 sessions. So basically to guide them that they are on the right track in terms of the topic, the quality and the strength of their ITP in the teaching and learning context makes sense. And then finally, that they are creating something that can be adopted as open education resources, so that your support will be more at that level, but the ownership of what they are working on should come from them. Any other questions? I don't see any hands raised. Let me have a quick, okay, Christina, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. This is my first online meeting because we had school the previous 3 times. So I'm very glad to be here and see all of you. I would like to ask something that comes to my mind, and maybe you can comment on it. How can we track and measure the progress we're making and the success of our mentoring practically?
Thank you, Christina. So for that, of course, in terms of tracking and measuring success, the end goal is that at the end of this virtual phase, at the end of the team building phase, they, meaning the participants, your mentees, your team, created an excellent innovative teaching practice. And for that, how do we track whether the ITP is excellent or not? If you remember from your own participation, we'll share a template so that, for example, there will be sections about relevance, right? Sections on creativity, collaboration. So depending on all those sections in the template that we give, then you can, as a mentor, support them and then identify whether you are happy with the work or not. Of course, at the end of the day, then it really depends on those metrics and those set criteria. And another metrics would be to track if your mentees are regularly participating or not, regularly and timely contributing or not, whether they are being respectful to their peer or not. So in a nutshell, both from their motivation, engagement, and contribution side, as well as from the submission side, whatever they are supposed to submit, complete, that they are doing it well. Dagmar, I saw that you raised your hand.
Thank you. Yes, I also have a feedback question, but I understand that this is a pilot program for you, the mentorship. How do you gather feedback on how, if it was successful? Is there something else we need to do as mentors after to give feedback to the ASEF?
Yes, absolutely. So if you remember from participating in the school collaboration as well, we always have a feedback form, feedback and evaluation, because we want to learn from your experience. How was it, and what you'd improve, what went well, and what could have improved. So of course, you will have the chance, and depending on that, we'll improve the program for the next cohort. Yeah. And you said you had a feedback question, right?
That was it, just feedback to the mentorship program, not to the ClassNet program.
Okay. Susanna, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. I just wonder if we have any problem with our mentees talking about that we have to join them in a meeting or something like that, and they don't come regularly, or any other kind of issues. What shall we do?
So please always email to the classnet@asef.org, so the ClassNet generic meeting, by keeping NG and me in CC, so that we are also aware of it, both of us. So of course, when you meet them for the first time, from our side, we will try to support and communicate, support you and communicate with them as much as possible, that this is how your mentors will support you. And if you are, as a team, setting a timeline, please be respectful and follow it, right? But if anybody is not doing that, we will try to support the mentors to ensure that everybody is being respectful and maintaining the timeline. Of course, as you go along the journey, there are some participants for various reasons drop out. So it can be for their own motivation, or it can be some other reason. they are highly motivated, but still they cannot. So there are all sorts of reasons, right? But we will actively support you to ensure that everybody is active, who wants to be active, and then they are completing different phases. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? I see.
Nahid has.
Oh, okay. Let me see Nahid and then Susanna. Yes.
Thank you, Jyoti, for giving me the opportunity. Just for my clarification, what do we really expect from the mentees? I mean, the product that we are expecting from them. Are they going to do a project jointly, or do you want them to apply a innovative teaching practice in their classroom with the use of AI or integrating the AI? And also, I mean, what's the product at first do you expect from the mentees? And if you want innovative teaching practice, so if they work jointly, do you think that they can do it? Because sometimes teaching culture might be different and varies from country to country. So for my clarification, what product do we expect from them?
Yeah.
Do you expect from them as well?
Of course. Thanks, Nahid. First of all, I highly recommend everybody to go through the recording for the introduction session if you missed it, as well as read the program documents, because some of the questions that you have asked, Nahid, we have also laid it out there. But to summarize, so at the end of the virtual session, of course, it has to be a designed innovative teaching practice. So that the design process has to be done, right? And then depending on the designed innovative teaching practice and the quality of it, we will select a pool of participants for the next phase, which is a hybrid implementation stage. So that includes action learning phase and the conference, right? So your role as a mentor to support them to ensure that they are successful in completing one phase and moving on to the next phase. So when, for example, let's say the team that you are mentoring moves on to the next phase during the action learning, then they will be implementing the innovative teaching practice in their school. And then if they are successful at the end of their implementation stage, and if they are selected for the conference, when they come to the conference, then they will be presenting the findings and then work together in a peer-to-peer setting to formulate their innovative teaching practice from the implementation phase to design phase, all together as open education resources to support other teachers. So the end goal, the end product is that successfully creating an open education resource for the ITP that they are working on. Does it clarify? Did I clarify or answered your questions fully, or is still something is missing?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, previously in the previous program, we have found that they, I mean, two participants from two different countries introduce a project in their schools.
Yeah.
So, are we expecting any project or an innovative teaching practice only in this phase, or do they use it? I mean, in their respective classroom? Or they might have, I mean, whether they will work in pair that they did, you know, in previous program, or they work individually.
Okay. So just to kind of clarify, because Nahid comes from the faculty collaboration track. We also have Omar here, Sirin here. So that is different from the school collaboration track, right? A part of the school collaboration, participants design innovative teaching practice, we also call ITP. In faculty collaboration, that's different, that's proposal, right? So considering the implementation experience from last year, so we bring everyone together, mentor, mentees, and experts, right? We bring everyone together, give the platform to work on an idea and potentially implement it, right? We create that space. However, at the end of the day, how the project moves forward really depends on the participants, right? Whether how they want to implement it. For example, Christina is now applying for a UNESCO conference depending on the ITP she designed. So she's taking it forward, right? So like Christina, there are some of you who are taking it forward because you are motivated, because you want to get something out of it even after the project ends, right? So it depends on that. Depending on the resources and capacity we have, we cannot really actively follow up throughout all the phases. even after, like when the project ends. So yeah. So looking at the time, it's almost at 5, so I will be really grateful if you could stay back for a few minutes, and my sincere apologies that we are going over time. Let's take the question from Susanna, then I will share my screen again. And if any of you have any questions that today we don't have the chance to clarify, please write to us. Susanna, go ahead.
Just a very quick question. So would you suggest that every time we communicate with our mentees, we copy the ASF email into it, or just if there are challenges?
So for this one, I also invite NG to comment as well. Ideally, when you are working together with your mentees, we want you to have the autonomy and ownership of your own mentorship journey. So design it the way you and your mentees feel comfortable with. Rekha and NG, do you have anything else to add?
No, I agree with you. I mean, unless you really encounter issues with the mentees, then you should actually approach us. Otherwise, we'll just we'll just assume that everything is going smoothly.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, good to see you. Just a quick idea as I was listening to the discussion, I was thinking perhaps a WhatsApp group would be a good solution for this purpose. If you have any concerns or need clarification, or you just want to support each other and share success stories, this could be a platform where it could be done instantly. So if you think it's a good idea, please put it in the chat and then we can organize accordingly.
Thank you, Rekha.
And there would be alongside the Facebook group for the mentors, is that right?
So the Facebook group, it's for the whole project. So usually we have a Facebook group for each project, so everyone is there. But going back to Rekha's suggestion, and I also think it will be really useful to have a very specific group only for mentors and to communicate effectively.
Yeah, that's
so
good idea.
Thank you, Susanna. So with that, let me quickly share my screen to because this is important that we highlight. First of all, I think I see that my screen is live now. Can you see my screen? Can I hear? Yeah, okay, I see thumbs up. Okay, thank you. So now, so we have done 3 key knowledge building sessions, right? How are they relevant in your mentorship? So let's go to the first one. Today's one, because we just completed. So why did we learn about feedback and empowering mentorship? The core reason is that the key part of your mentorship is to ensure that you cultivate motivation and engagement throughout participants' school collaboration journey, and to ensure that they have timely, relevant, and high quality innovative teaching practice submission. And for that, after today's session, hopefully you have the right amount of awareness, knowledge, and tools to give effective feedback, as well as to ensure that your mentees are receiving the feedback well. And finally, we hope that you will ensure, as Juliette also highlighted some of it, celebrating success and empathic listening, that your mentees enjoy the process. They feel a sense of belonging, as Adam said. And then finally, as Subha stressed, a respectful team environment where, you know, in a culturally diverse setting, you were actively supporting one another and effectively collaborating, all in all, to make this mentorship journey successful. And then you had a session on the concept and frameworks on artificial intelligence in education. Some of your participants might know a bit more about this because they have attended so many sessions on AI and education. So we would sit together with your mentees, understand AI and education trends and ongoing conversations, discuss with them, discuss and exchange knowledge on what you learned about AI and education. And we also highly recommend you to join the self-learning phase that we designed for participants so that you can build on the knowledge that you already have on AI. And particularly, please focus on the key concepts, ethics, competency framework, both for teachers and learners. Mainly for teachers, but of course, please do focus on the learners one as well. And then, as you know, the ASEFClassNet 17 project is designed on 2 distinctive parts of AI, right? Learning about AI, learning with AI. So some of your participants might want to focus on learning about AI and reflecting on it, right, to raise awareness, the fundamentals of it. And some of them want to go a bit more practical and focus on learning with AI. So before the design, before they focus on finding an idea for their innovative teaching practice, clear this up, decide together, and then either go for learning with AI or learning about AI, so that it's the process of designing is very smooth and focused. And then finally, help your mentees design their ITP in a way that is carefully and correctly embracing the topic that they're focusing on, either learning about or learning with. And then in their innovative teaching practice, they have inclusion, ethics, and effectiveness in mind. So whatever they are designing has to maintain that they are inclusive for their students. It's ethical approach in terms of if they are using certain tools, and then also it's effective in terms of improving learning outcome and engagement. Finally, you have also learned about open education resources. So you have received the training, but your mentees did not. So we are counting on your support to relay those messages to your mentees. Tell them what you have learned about open education resources, the processes that now you know, and then share and exchange your knowledge and discuss together the concept, processes, and issues and significance, etc. And of course, you know, there are different types and levels of open education resources, as Robert laid out for you. So work together with your mentees and pick one that they are motivated to focus on. And then finally, help them design their ITP in a way that can be as a final product adopted as open education resources to support educators that are beyond this ASEFClassNet community. So with that, if you have any questions on this, you know, these three relevance aspect, please write to us since we don't have time to take any more questions. So the self-learning session begins on 8th of May, and we have two fantastic speakers, Dr. Wayne Holm and Kyung-Mi Lee, who will be talking about the you know, AI in education in a critical way, and also highlighting the threats and opportunities. And hopefully you will be able to participate. If not, please watch the recording. And with that, thank you so much for actively participating. A big thank you to our mentor speakers, Jules, Adam, and Subha, and to all of you for going through this training journey with us, and good luck for your mentorship journey.